So there we have it, Mr. Speaker, confirmation that the government has given up on governing. The Prime Minister's first and likely only King's speech on what should be his moment of maximum power and authority, yet it wasn't. Because he's too weak. He has no burning agenda, he cannot escape his government's own record, and he certainly cannot be the change the country is crying out for. The verdict is in. Thin gruel, damp squib, dull as ditch water, a series of gimmicks, and a Prime Minister already checked out his wheelie at the door. Not my words, but those of members opposite. She knows it, they know it. Yet another failed reset. They're out of ideas and out of road, drifting to defeat, as one has put it today. The programme is so thin, it's embarrassing. Of the few bills announced, 5 are carryovers, 4 barely longer than a page, 3 we've seen before, and a flagship crime bill that's already been shelved. Despite the big issues facing our country, their answers are so small. Nothing to tackle the cost of living crisis, just a Prime Minister deluded that everything is going great, even getting his own figures wrong. Nothing on NHS waiting lists or mental health, despite a bill being promised many times. Education consigned to lofty ambitions years away. Nothing of substance on transport, despite Network North being the Prime Minister's last big reset. Another flunk. But they found time for regulation of pedicabs and a bill to make it easier to sack doctors. Does the government really think sacking doctors is the solution to an NHS crisis? Others, political stunts, not fixing problems. Take North Sea gas and oil. Can the leader confirm that we already have regular North Sea licensing and it hasn't prevented the worst cost of living crisis in generations? Can she also confirm that in the midst of that crisis driven by energy bills, the grand offer of this King's speech is a bill which, by the admission of the Energy Secretary, will do absolutely nothing about bills? The only way to bring down bills and get energy security is by going further and faster on cheaper renewables. Instead, this government is retreating and spending billions subsidising gas, the price of which is set globally anyway. It's politics first, country second. And then there's their so-called flagship crime bill, a bill that's had to go back to the drawing board. The Prime Minister is too weak to stand up to his Home Secretary, who wants to criminalise giving homeless people tents because she thinks it's a lifestyle choice. Despicable. We all know what she's up to. It's naked. Instead of sacking her, the Prime Minister cowers next to her. He's cowering next to her today too. She's out of control. She's utterly irresponsible, undermining the police while stoking up division ahead of a difficult and important weekend. She's unhinged. I asked the leader today, does she agree with her that the police officers are playing favourites in this case? But the Prime Minister is so weak he can't rein her in. He's so weak, he couldn't even get his own ideas into his own King's speech.
Can I just... I don't like the terms unhinged. I do want, and I understand tensions are running very high, but I do want us to try and moderate the language.
I'll withdraw that, Mr. Speaker. I'll ask the questions instead. Nutrient neutrality dropped to avoid another embarrassing defeat. Whatever happened to the motorist bill? Briefed several times as the Prime Minister's big idea, nowhere this week. And the ban on conversion therapy dropped. One of the Prime Minister's pet projects did make it in, though, Mr. Speaker, a bill for autonomous vehicles. But the joke they're making on the Tory WhatsApp groups is it's their own government that is a driverless car. I can tell the leader that Labour is revving up. There's much we would do. Bring in a fiscal responsibility lock so that mortgage payers never again pay the price of Conservative failure. Ban water bosses' bonuses and clean up our rivers. End non-dom tax breaks for more doctors and teachers. Change planning laws to build more affordable homes. A proper windfall tax and set up GB Energy. Make work pay. Proper leasehold reform and rights for renters. Tackle crime and violence against women and girls. Introduce the skills and growth levy. Real rail and bus reform. The list goes on. The Prime Minister was right about one thing. This country needs change, but his programme offers more of the same. Weakness, failure, political stunts and division. They've given up on governing and are preparing for jobs in opposition. But take it from me, opposition isn't all it's cracked up to be. It's a privilege to have the power of government and a majority in this place. Isn't the biggest travesty of all that they don't even want it anymore?
Yeah. Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, can I start just by thanking all members and all staff of this House and yourself, Mr. Speaker, for making the state opening so successful, the King's first speech to this House. I know many honourable and right honourable members will also be taking part in remembrance services across the nation and overseas this weekend. Medals proudly worn by our veterans are not just a thank you to them from a grateful nation, but also a message for the rest of us. And we should remember their service and sacrifice, but also the lessons that made their service and sacrifice both necessary and possible. And we should reflect on this weekend as we attend those services and lay wreaths beside memorials, how we can best honour them and the freedoms we enjoy because of them and protect their precious legacy. The Honourable Lady starts by talking about cost of living, and I'm sorry that as she did so, she didn't recognise that this week we have paid out $2.2 billion in cost of living payments. 99% of households eligible for the cost of living payment have already received that from this government, and I'm afraid I disagree with her. I don't think that our energy security or cost of living issues are remotely helped by lessening our energy security, which is why we are bringing forward that bill, why I would ask her party to support it, and it is not remotely incompatible with investing in renewable energy and clean technology. She is rather fond of criticising our record past and also what we are planning to do in this session, and I think it would be helpful just to get the scores on the doors there. She believes that our 43 bills, 1,000 SIs and a record number of private bills, 24, passed in the third session is a shabby record. I would just point out to her that between 1997 and 2010, 13 parliamentary sessions, there were only 2 sessions that put through more bills than we passed in the last parliamentary session, and in the last sessions of Labour administrations, the average number of bills brought forward were 21. She can't justify the charge she makes against us about the amount that we have got done. She might be relying on the amount of time it took us. It did take us less time than we had allocated to pass a lot of that legislation and do government business, but that's not really a problem for these benches. It's more a problem for the opposition benches, although I wish to make it clear I have no complaints about that, Mr. Speaker. This side of the House has been pulling its weight, even on Opposition Day debates. For debates on school safety and animal welfare, for example, there were more Conservative speakers in Opposition Day debates than there were from the opposition. Going to the specifics that she raises on tents, the Home Secretary has no plans to ban millets. We're not doing that. This government has made the largest investment ever in tackling homelessness and rough sleeping, $2 billion to accelerate its mitigation and prevention, including preventing 640,000 people in the last 5 years from becoming homeless. On conversion therapy, this is a manifesto commitment. It is still a manifesto commitment, and the Secretary of State will keep the House informed on the work she is doing on this important matter. I was surprised to hear the Honourable Lady raise nutrient neutrality. I hope that she would have supported our measures on nutrient neutrality, but she will know we are, the Secretary of State will no doubt update the House on further work that he is doing in that area. But we are bringing forward many measures that are going to assist with more developments happening, including some reforms at the Valuation Office. But at the heart of the charge that the Honourable Lady presents us with, it comes to values, and it comes to who is fit to govern for the people of this country. And I'd ask her to just have a little bit of self-reflection. She mentions doctors. 80% of the doctors, the medical doctors in this House, sit on these benches. 91% of the veterans in this House sit on these benches. I don't think there is a problem with our values or our service or our duty. I just say to her that yesterday outside this place, 40 Just Stop Oil activists held up an ambulance on Waterloo Bridge. It was our legislation passed in this House that enabled the police to arrest 40 of those protesters and get the traffic moving. Legislation that the Honourable Lady blocked, along with reforms to protect the public from strike action. She supports the regressive tax policies of the London Mayor and the tax and spend policies of the Shadow Chancellor that would saddle every household with an additional £3,000 worth of tax per annum. And the once party of education, education, education is now the party of tax. Education, education, education. Just think about that for a moment and the values it represents. I am going to take no lectures from a Labour Party that puts politics before people. They talk of change, but I'm afraid the Labour Party have not changed at all.